Hey guys, Brian from Boas here. If you've been following the channel, you know I had a litter a few weeks ago of beautiful Honduran firebelly boas. So today I wanted to give you guys an update on the babies and how the litter's doing, and we'll take a quick look at some of the babies. I just grabbed the mother, who's recovering very nicely, and she's one of my more iffy snakes. I don't really handle her very often. She's a little bitey, but she has calmed down quite a bit over time, so hopefully she's not going to draw blood today. But I just thought I'd show you her because she's got such a beautiful, orangey peach belly, hence the name Firebelly. She's definitely, one of the most intensely colored Honduran firebelly boas I've seen, produced by Legacy Reptiles back in like 2013 or even 2012. Just a really beautiful animal, intense orange eyes as well. So I had this litter a few weeks ago, and what was surprising is that the litter was born about 90 days after the post-ovulation shed. So as you probably know, boa litters are typically born 105 days after the post-ovulation shed. But that's really just a rule of thumb. It's really a ballpark estimate. It can vary quite a bit, and I was concerned because this particular animal 2 years before had a litter about 3 weeks early, and they all ended up dying except for 2 of them. So I was concerned the babies were a little premature, they weren't going to make it. But luckily they all pulled through and they're all doing really well. And so, perhaps the Honduran firebellies just give birth a little bit earlier than others, or perhaps just this particular animal. I know that like other types of boas, like my true red tails, especially the Peruvians, they go way longer than 105 days. It's usually like 120, 125, even 130 days after the post-ovulation shed, and it's fine. So if you have a boa and it doesn't give birth exactly when you think it is, just relax. Chances are everything is going to be fine. So the baby boas are all doing really well. They've actually all eaten, which was really a pleasant surprise. Normally I have some that are a little tricky to get to feed, but they've all eaten at least once or twice so far. And so, hopefully they'll put on some size, and, I can establish them in the next, month and a half or so. They'll be ready for their new homes. I noticed that typically my baby boas shed at about 10 days of age, but several of my Hondurans didn't shed. So this happens sometimes. Sometimes they just kind of wait to the second shed cycle. And sometimes I'll even see baby boas that shed basically 2 sheds at once. So I don't know if this is related to the fact that they were a little bit early, but I've seen it before, and it's typically not going to be a problem. Although I'll show you some of the babies, but some of them, the colors are still a little bit muted because they haven't shed yet. So anyway, this is the female, but let's go grab some of the babies and I can show you what they look like. Here's a firebelly with a nice even symmetrical pattern. This is one of the ones that shed, and I like the symmetry on this one. Let me just show you his or her belly. They really, when they're born, the belly colors aren't really all that developed. It just takes some time for that to come in. And some of them do have more intense belly colors. Actually the mother of the litter is one of the most intensely colored firebellies I've ever seen. Another feature of the firebellies are their beautiful orangey eyes. Hopefully you can see that if this one's cooperating. But they have these beautiful orangey red eyes that are just really intense. Here's one last shot of this nicely symmetrical one before I put him or her back away. The male who sired this litter is nearly patternless with just a few saddles, and some of the babies take after him. So this is one of the more patternless ones. It's mostly striped. And this guy hasn't shed yet, so his colors are still a little dull. But it's a really cool pattern. And this guy I probably will end up keeping. I haven't decided yet. I want to keep all of them, of course, but of course I can't do that. But you can see the nearly patternless look. It's a really cool animal. It's really hard to show you their bellies. They just don't want to cooperate, and his belly really isn't all that brightly colored since he hasn't shed yet, and of course it's going to be a few years before he or her reaches his or her maximum potential. But really nice animal. So, you know, some of them have this almost patternless with just a few saddles. Some of them have this really nice symmetrical saddles. Some of them are a little aberrant, you know, with some irregular saddles. So, a variety of different looks in these Honduran Firebelly Boas. And this guy, I don't know if you can see, but he's quite a bit bigger than the one I just showed you. Probably at least 3 or 4 inches longer. Really cool look to his tail there. You can see it's striped and patternless, and he's got the tail blotches. But most of his body is patternless. And this guy's going to look really amazing once he sheds. Here's one more baby that's mostly patternless. You can see this one has a lot of striping. And then, you know, the posterior half of the body is mostly one big stripe. But then he or she has the saddles on the tail. Really a cool look. So this is another one that hasn't shed yet, but I really like these striped Honduran Firebellies. I had got a really nice male 3 years ago, my first litter, that I held back, so I'll have to show you him in a minute here. But you can see another striped one. The colors, since this animal hasn't shed, the colors are going to look quite a bit brighter after he or she sheds. But you can see that cool striping, and the striping seems to be really popular among people that are into boas. And in general, I prefer saddles, you know, the regular saddles to striping. But I think in these Honduran Firebellies it looks really cool. So I hope to selectively breed for animals that just really bring out that striping. So I thought I'd show you a couple of my holdbacks from 2018. So these guys are now 3 years old, developing really nicely. This is a male. This is probably my favorite from the entire litter, and probably my favorite boa that I produced in 2018. You can see he's got this nice patternless back half and beautiful colors. This guy, you can see his fire belly is kind of developing nicely, and he's got these really intense orangey reddish eyes. These fire bellies, like other Honduran boas, they got this really short head. It's kind of short and stocky. You know, the bodies are pretty short and stocky as well. And they don't get all that big, you know, maybe around 5-6 feet max. But a really cool boa. There's some controversy around the true origin of these. You know, some people claim it was from this island called Roatan in Honduras, you know, off the coast of Honduras. Others claim that they're really just mainland Honduran boas that have the beautiful fiery bellies. But whatever they are, they're really cool bloodline. And, you know, there are other Honduran and Central American boas that have, you know, intense colors. But the Honduran Firebelly specifically trace back to the breeder, Dennis Sargent, who established them. And these guys, as I mentioned, came from Legacy Reptiles. So this guy probably will be ready to breed next year, although I don't have a mate for him, so it's not going to be till 2023 that he breeds. But really cool looking animal, this Honduran Firebelly boa. One more holdback from 2018. This is a female, and this one has more of a symmetrical saddles, not really any striping. But you know, like I mentioned, I like different looks in boas. I like the striped Honduran Firebellies as well as the ones with the more symmetrical appearance. This particular female, you can see her fire belly. Her colors might not be quite as intense as the male that I just showed you, but still a really colorful, beautiful animal. And these fire belly boas, they're pretty easy to keep. I mean, as far as husbandry, it's really straightforward. Like any other Central American boa, they're not really all that picky. They can be a little hissy. You know, most of it's a bluff. Like, you know, other Central American boas, they hiss a lot and they might strike, but typically they don't bite. Probably not the world's best boa, just, you know, as far as straight pet qualities, you know, docility and handling, but certainly, you know, easy to keep and beautiful to look at, and usually pretty easy to handle as well. So highly recommended boa. Of course, finding these Honduran Firebellies is not easy, is unfortunately there's not a whole lot of them on the market anymore. So really happy to have these in my collection, and I hope to be producing these for years to come. So that was a look at my Honduran Firebellies. The babies, as I mentioned, will hopefully be ready in about a month and a half or so. I want to give these guys a little bit extra time because they were a little bit premature, so I want to make sure they've all shed at least twice and that they're all feeding really well. But so far, as I mentioned, they're all feeding, and it looks like they should be really easy to get established, just so I know that when they go to their new homes, they have, you know, the best odds of success. So I hope this video was helpful. As always, feel free to reach out to me with any questions or comments you may have. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your Boas.